everyone, and welcome to Upcycled Adulting, my YouTube channel where I help you to overcome obstacles, create healthy habits, and grow into your goals. I'm so excited that you're here today because I am going to be talking about one of the foundational pillars to accomplishing your goals and managing your real life in a way that really works. And that is building a village. Now, listen, do not turn this off because you're thinking to yourself, but Cassie, I don't know people. I'm an introvert. I'm socially awkward. I have social anxiety. There is no one for me to ask for help. I don't have family. Listen, I completely understand. These are very real scenarios in the 21st century that we're all trying to navigate, right? And I always find it very interesting that so many people wish that they had a village and so few people are committed to creating one because we just don't know how. That's the reality. And if you're anything like me, you have all of the issues I just named, and you also might be fiercely independent. Perhaps you were parentified as a child. You're used to navigating your own stuff, and it's really hard for you to lean into other people, but dang, it's lonely. And you maybe wish that you had a little bit of support. So today I want to talk about how we can go about creating our own village, how to make friends, how to make connections, and how to actually strengthen the bonds that we have with the people who are in our lives so that we have the support that we need for ourselves and perhaps for our families. If you are a mom, you may notice that it takes a village to raise a child, but nobody has one right now. So let's talk about exactly how to do this. Now, I'm going to go into this scenario and I'm going to assume that you either don't have family or that you don't have family that's safe to include in your village. For some of you, that may be the very first time you've ever heard of that concept. But here's the deal, just because you have family doesn't mean that you can lean into them. Maybe they're not available. Maybe they're not safe. Maybe they're really busy. Maybe that's just not the dynamic of your own family. And so you don't have parents that you can call. Maybe you're not super comfortable with your in laws and how they relate to your children. And so you don't really want them to be in a responsible position or you don't want to call them in an emergency. I completely get that. And so we're going to assume that family is off the table. If you happen to have family, you can absolutely use some of the things that you learn in this video to create deeper connections and more reciprocal relationships with people in your family. But if you don't, let's start with where do you find the people? One of the hardest things to do when we're thinking about creating a village is to find the people. It involves putting yourself out there and it involves starting relationships with people. Now, you may have an online village and that's wonderful. Yay. Okay. And I hope I'm part of it. But that online village, unfortunately, cannot show up if something goes sideways. That online village can't have a key to your house in case you lose your key. They can't pick your kid up from school if they're sick and you're stuck in traffic. They can't do the things that you may need help with in your everyday life. They can't switch babysitting with you so you and your partner can go on a date, right? These are the things that sometimes we need. You're not going to spend Thanksgiving with them, right? So when we think about creating the village that we want to have, we really want to try to find people who are more local to us. Now, if you have children, a great place to start, sorry about the shaking, a great place to start is your child's school or daycare, right? This already creates a connection with you because you are connected by that institution, that school or that daycare. If you are a homeschooling mom, because I know some of y'all are like, I homeschool, okay? Then your homeschooling community, right? Where do you take your kids for activities? Activities is also a great place to meet other parents, partly because one of the things that we do in a village is we create carpools, okay? So parents of kids in your kids' activities, in your kids' school, these are great people to consider creating a village with. Now, it's important to know that a lot of times when you meet people through your child's school or their activities, that these are oftentimes friends for a season. A lot of people really don't know that or understand that. But as your kids get older, if they stop being friends with each other, they get involved in different activities. Maybe you move, you go to a different school district, or your kids grow up like mine have and they move out and you're now empty nesters. A lot of times, the parent friends or the parents that were in your village, they will no longer be a part of your village. Listen, that's okay. That's okay. One of the things we really need to get mindful about and aware of is that some of the people in our village are actually not permanently in our village. They're there for a season. Okay. And that's okay. I think a lot of times we think our village is permanent, and it doesn't necessarily work that way, right? It's kind of like living in any other community. Sometimes people move in, sometimes they move out, sometimes you lose touch, sometimes you stay in touch, sometimes those friendships become super close. It varies, okay? So we need to not get so hung up with like, you're gonna be my lifelong best friend, right? We're gonna start with, I'm going to make some acquaintance connections. I'm gonna create a network, right? Of people that I know that I have some common ground with. If you don't have children, or even if you have kids, you can still do this. You want to sign up for things. Now, I know that this is hard for y'all introverts like okay? But it is really, really helpful if you get a gym membership, join a book club, okay, at your local library, take a class at the rec, go to a pottery class. If you love pottery, sign up for things, okay? You do not need anybody else to be there for you to sign up for it. You don't have to go with a friend or somebody you already know. Going solo, and a lot of people do go solo, so they have the opportunity to meet new people. Okay. Sign up for that ballroom dancing class you've been pining to take, whatever it is, sign up for it and go do it. This is a great way to meet other people, again, that have common interests to yours. All right. Once you meet those people, you can start suggesting things like, hey, why don't we go for coffee after class? Right. Or a glass of wine if that's your thing. Hey, why don't we carpool to class? Where you're really creating deeper connections or deeper intimacy, and you're kind of creating, you're taking someone who was a stranger and you're moving them through trust circles, right? Stranger, now they're an acquaintance, right? And you're moving them inward toward being part of your village or being in a friendship or at least a reciprocal relationship, right? Where you can lean into each other and you can rely on each other for certain things. And maybe this isn't a person who's going to run to the hospital with you if you need to go there, or this isn't a person who you're going to have babysit your kids, right? But this is a person who you would potentially call if you were just having a rough day. Or maybe this was a person that you would call to grab a cup of coffee with, or that you would, right, call to borrow a book from if you're in a book club. So this is part of how we create a village. Not everyone in our village serves the same purpose. I kind of feel like I need to say that again. Not everyone in our village serves the same purpose, and that's okay. Just because people's talents vary, just because the things we feel comfortable leaning into them for varies, doesn't mean they're not valuable. Okay. Just because you would never in a million years leave your children with that woman you know from book club doesn't mean she's not part of your village. It doesn't mean that if you were sick, she wouldn't bring you a pot of soup or a good book to read. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't call her if you got a flat tire, right? It doesn't mean that. And we need to understand that a village isn't made up of one kind of person. A village is made up of a variety of people who all have various talents. And so that's the next thing I really want to talk about, which is understand what your talents are and understand what the talents are of the people in your network, the people that you know. Okay, what are their talents? Sometimes people will have talents sheerly by proximity, like geographic location, right? So, for example, if I was like, gosh, I seem to lose my keys a lot, or boy, I need somebody to grab my mail when I'm on vacation, it would be really wise for me to ask one of my neighbors. They're right there, right? My mailbox is across the street in front of my neighbor's house, and it's on the same post as my neighbor's mailbox. it would probably be no problem at all for them to grab my mail when I'm out of town. Are we best friends? No. Would I grab their mail when they're out of town? You bet. That's so easy. I'm already going to the mailbox, right? Why would I mind grabbing their mail? Not a problem. When you think about what different people can bring into your life and what you can bring into theirs, it gives you a space to start creating deeper connections. We often think that asking for help is a burden. And in fact, asking for help is a vulnerability, it is an act of trust. And it's a way that we build connection and trust and closeness in our village, right? So I might ask my neighbor who I'm not super good friends with to grab my mail. Okay. I see them at neighborhood get togethers, but I mean, we've never hung out one on one. We've lived across the street from each other for like 15 years. Now I'm actually thinking, why has that never happened? Because I really like my neighbors. But I could ask them to get my mail. I would not necessarily ask them to watch my kids. If there was an emergency, potentially, we have kids around the same age, potentially, if there was an emergency, but it's not as likely because we're not that close. And that feels a little bit more of an ask, right? Understanding that you can find the talents of the people in your village and lean into them, and that they will feel acknowledged for those talents. They get to show up in that way, and that you can offer to show up for them in the ways that you have talents, right? I could go to their house and say, "Hey, we're going to be out of town this week. Would you mind grabbing the mail for us?" And just so you know, if you ever go out of town, I'm happy to grab your mail too, right? Absolutely. Absolutely, I can do that. They might just feel awkward about asking me, right? That's the reality. I remember the first time that I felt close enough to somebody in my neighborhood that I knew that they were sick and I took them a pot of soup. Okay. They did not ask for it, but I took it to them. And I was so excited that I felt close enough to someone that I could do this kind thing for them because one of my talents does happen to be cooking, right? I love to cook and I love to bake. You never know how touched someone will be to be asked to show up for you. And you can offer to show up for them as well. Now, how do you get this started? Because that's weird. You're like, I don't know. This person's an acquaintance. I have coffee with them. Okay. What we want to start with is a small ask or a small offer, right? Something little like, hey, I'm going this way anyways. I could pick you up on my way to book club. It's a small ask, right? Hey, I was thinking we both drive to soccer practice 3 times a week. Maybe we should carpool so that we're not both doing it, right? That just seems wasteful. Like I'm kind of eco friendly that way, right? So when we start doing these little things where we're like, this is something that we can do for each other, it helps to build the feeling of community. Someone has to be the first person to ask, someone has to be the first person to put it out there. Now, if you're super, super socially awkward like I am, okay, you might actually struggle with the initial bit. So you go to book club or you go to the crafting class. Okay. Now I'm here with all these strangers. Okay. So good things to lean into is to compliment people. Notice things about them. Ask them about their lives. Okay. This is how we start creating that connection. This is how you find out what are they great at? Where do they have talents? Where could we actually lean into each other, right? Like finding out that somebody in my community is a stay-at-home mom and that I'm starting a business and that they might be able to help me with getting the kids to the activity and I could get them home because of the end of the activity isn't in my workday, but the beginning of it is. Okay. That's incredibly helpful. That's incredibly beneficial, right? That matters. So we are going to actually bring people we don't know or people we do know casually into our village by intentionally creating connections with new people, whether that means at your kids' school or at their daycare or at their activities, or that means joining a club or a gym or some other class, right? So that you can be around people because the first step to building a village is actually to find people to be in the village. And then you're going to approach them with compliments, asking them about their lives and noticing things about them, right? So you can compliment them. You can notice something about, oh, I noticed that our kids are in the same grade. Oh, I noticed that fill in the blank. All right. So you're noticing something about them. They feel seen and heard and validated. And it makes it easier. Oh, I love that too. Finding things in common, right? Finding common ground. This is going to allow you to bridge the gap where you can start saying things like, hey, do you want to trade this for that? Hey, I could really use a hand with. Hey, I could help you out with. All right. Now, a lot of times, the first time I do this, I really like to take the opportunity to recognize something somebody is great at and to actually lean into that. So, I have worked a lot on this through the years, and I very, very recently had this happen that my husband and I have lived in our house for many years. We're empty nesters now. We've been thinking about putting our house on the market for the last couple years, but we've lived here for a really long time. And I don't have like a great aesthetic sense. I love my house the way it is. I don't like to change things. And so I know someone in my neighborhood who like just is able to make everything look beautiful. And so I said to her, I love your house. I love your garden. You're always doing these beautiful projects at your house. And I need to get my house ready to sell. I just really don't have that talent. I was wondering if you would mind coming by sometime and just sharing with me what kinds of things you think might help make the house more marketable. I mean, I know a real estate agent will do this too, but I don't really want to engage a real estate agent like a year or two before I'm selling my house. And if I'm going to do these things, I'd rather do them and have them done, right, while I'm here before I'm ready to sell so that I can enjoy them a little bit too. And so she was like, "Oh my gosh, I would be happy to." Part of why she's so happy to be part of my village in this way, because she's so amazing at this thing, is because I'm acknowledging that talent that she has, right? I have people in my village who do all sorts of things. Okay. Later on, I was talking to her about whether or not she knew why my hydrangeas weren't blooming. And she offered to come over and help prune them. And I said, oh my goodness, if you come help prune them, I'll make dinner for you because I know she's had some health stuff happening. Right. But she loves gardening. See what I'm saying? So, in this way, we are able to lean into each other's talents. I'm not saying she and I will be best friends for the rest of our lives. Okay. But it is really nice to have somebody that I can call and ask questions, right? It's really nice. It's really nice to know that there's somebody in my community that is willing to lend a hand with some of the things that are hard for me. That's a nice thing. And it creates that bond, right? It allows us to lean into each other a little bit. So I want to encourage you today, identify the things that you have that you can offer somebody else, your strengths, your talents. Look for even the little things. Okay. Do you make an awesome cup of coffee? I was talking about this in a class with my clients, and one of my clients actually said that the thing that they really wanted was they knew someone in their circle who had a, cappuccino maker, right? And she knew how to make the foam really fancy on the top, like how to make little hearts and stuff in it. And this client of mine was just so amazed by it. She just thought it was so wonderful. She was like, I could ask her to show me how to do that, and that would create a connection. And I really, really want to know. And so she asked the woman to show her how to do it. And the woman was like, I never even thought of that as something that was really special about me. And it made the other woman feel so wonderful, right? And this relationship over a year later is still going on, and there's still reciprocation in all these other ways, right? Because of the awareness, because of just recognizing somebody's talent and asking them for help. So look for your talents that somebody might actually really appreciate, even if you think that they're just whatever, right? Whatever. I just know how to do that. I've always known how to do that. A lot of people don't. Okay. So look for your talents and look for the places where you struggle. Okay. Don't blame yourself for that. Remember that we are meant to have a village. The places where you struggle, the places where you're not as strong, the places where you have weakness, those are the places that other people can contribute to your life so that you can create the village, so that you can have reciprocation. Okay. I have found out the hard way that people don't like to actually be in your village and only be taking from you. They like to bring something to the family dinner or to card night. They like to show up for you when you're showing up for them. And people who are not wired that way, you probably don't actually want them in your village because you don't want to be a doormat, right? You want to be in community with people that you can lean into each other. And that means allowing them to show up for you too. So, get out there, meet some people, identify your strengths, identify your weaknesses, and be always on the lookout for other people's strengths, for ways other people can show up in your life. Yes, I know you could just do it yourself. I understand that you can just do it yourself. But here's a great opportunity for you to build a village. So reach out to somebody else and create that connection. You will be so glad you did because I'm going to tell you a day is going to come when you can't do it yourself. And having already created these relationships, you will be so glad that you did. So glad that you did. And for those of you who are already in that day, you're already in that crisis, just start small. You will get there. I know it seems overwhelming. Just meet a couple people. Lean in for a couple little things. Even the smallest things taken off of our plate can sometimes make the biggest difference, but we don't know it in the moment. I like to keep a list of things that I need. It always helps me because it gives me a space to go, right? And be like, oh, these are things other people could do for me. I could ask for help with these things. These are things that if I was in crisis, I would need help with, and I don't know who I would ask. But if anybody ever said to me, you're in crisis, what can I do? I have a list I can give them, and they can figure it out, okay? And that is incredibly helpful. You can build a village. Listen to me. Other people are wishing to be in your village. Other people, the number of people who tell me over and over again in the years I've been coaching, the number one thing people say is, I don't have a support system. And people feel incredibly debilitated by this. And everybody wants a support system. You be the one to get the ball rolling. Everybody's waiting for somebody else. Nobody wants to be the first one, okay? Please do it. Your village will be so grateful. The people in your life will be so grateful if you simply reach out and make that space for that village to form. All right, I am so happy that you're here. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments or what your successes look like or what your challenges look like in this area. And I will be happy to go through the comments and answer your questions or create another video if that's necessary. Sometimes y'all have some questions where I'm like, this actually needs a video. So let me know if you have any questions at all. I am so glad that you are here. You are absolutely amazing, and you deserve to live the life that you have been dreaming about with a village, with a support system. So go out there and make it happen. Bye, everyone.